Hi everyone, my name is Mahi and welcome back to Close Encounters, the podcast.
Hi everyone, it's Mahi. Welcome back to another episode of Close Encounters. You obviously know who I am. I'm Mahi, your host for every single episode. Today, our guest joins us live from Boston, MA, which is Massachusetts. Big word. Our first overseas guest, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have him. The more I learned about him and the more I thought about what I want to ask him, I realized he just has so many hobbies throughout his entire life. You could fill up an entire notebook with it. That's how much he likes different things. But most recently, he is here to talk about his love for wrestling. My God, crazy. Let's welcome our guest from Boston, MA, Massachusetts, Shoumik.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Shoumik. How are you doing? How is life? What's up?
I am doing good. Life couldn't be better, and I am grateful. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm great. Having this conversation with you, super excited. So, how are you feeling today being on our show? You're our first overseas guest. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it feels fun. It feels fun to be on the other side of the recording for once. I used to do my podcast. It was always me on where you are, so this is a fun side to be on.
How exciting. What kind of podcast did you have of your own? Sounds like you're speaking from a lot of experience.
So, big surprise, it was a pro wrestling podcast. And yeah, I used to interview a lot of my friends who are wrestlers, a lot of people from around the world who liked wrestling, who were involved in it in some way.
So exciting. As I said before, we're going to get into all the exciting aspects of your love for sports and wrestling. But before that, I want to talk to you about living in Massachusetts. What is that like?
It's really fun. It's a place where you see something new every day. I'm specifically in Boston, as you said, and Boston is the best way to describe it, a very vibrant city. So, like I said, you have something new going on every month, every day. You meet people from all walks of life. They love their sports here. Um, if you want verification of that, I got hit with a can right under my eye after the Celtics won the championship this year. Um, but yeah, it's a great city. It's a great place to be in. People are great, and it's a lot of new things altogether.
Do you think you're picking up any of their vernacular? Do you think you're adapting to their accent a little bit or their way of living somewhat?
I have found myself to do that sometimes. So here we call the transit system the T or the train. Um, and certain lines have a reputation of, oh, it's going to be rush hour, it's going to be packed, or you meet very interesting people on this. So one instance is the Red Line, which is very famous for, just being packed and going all over Boston and other cities. Someone tripped me over once, and in the most Boston accent without realizing, I said, what's wrong with you? The way out, and I didn't realize until I said it. So yeah, I have slowly started to pick up on their slang and on the accent itself.
That's so interesting. Why don't you tell me a little bit about why you're in Boston? I understand that you're there for your higher studies. So why don't you give us an insight into what you're doing and is it something you've always to do?
Yeah, so I'm in Boston for undergrad. I'm studying marketing and economics. Fun fact, I hated economics growing up, but I've come to find it's a pretty good. Yeah, coming to the US was always my dream. Just being able to kind of explore new opportunities, meet new people, and I felt like this was a great place to do it. So here I am today.
So was marketing something you've always wanted to do? Or once you finished school, were you just maybe I'll just stick with this?
No, marketing is something I always wanted to do. Growing up, I was always amazed by how you would see like billboards and different types of advertisement, and you would be drawn to buy that product. So just trying to understand how that works and how I, as a marketer, can potentially do that. That's always what drew me in. But apart from that, yeah, it's something I was trying to grasp onto throughout high school. But as soon as I did, yeah, I was pretty set on it being something I wanted to pursue as a career.
As I mentioned previously, you're living away from family overseas, all on your own. So, doing something of that level, it's very demanding, and deciding so early on that you want to live on your own overseas, as you said, going to the US was always a dream of yours. So,
Mm.
you need a certain level of independence for that. So, do you think you've always been extremely independent in your life since like childhood, or was it something you've had to like sort of adapt slowly since you moved to Boston?
I think it's been a bit of both. I grew up with my family, so I always had the most basic of things either done for me or already there. I didn't have to worry
Hmm.
about them. But I've also been someone who enjoys kind of just trying to venture out on my own and learn new things. So I think having that combination and move into a whole new environment completely like the US, it was demanding at first because now you have to think of things that were usually done for you, and now you have to figure out how they work on your own. Like for example, okay, I have to go open a bank account. How do I do that? I have to go buy groceries. Okay, what's the best way to do that? Okay, I have to set up my new apartment. How do I do that? Or I have to pay bills. I have to do this. I have to do that. So it's a very quick jump into like, oh, okay, you're a high school student one day. You don't have to worry about anything, and you have to just kind of learn as you go. To a very instant situation where once you make that trip over, you're like, okay, instant adult mode. You have to kind of help yourself understand and adapt to all these different situations and figure out the best way forward.
That really brought me like to my next question I really wanted to ask you is, as I said before, and I think you answered it in a way, but living on your own, it's an extremely debilitating thing. Like you have to have a certain mindset for that. And you also have to learn a lot of things. As I said, one of them being independence and also learning how to be self-sufficient. So what has this like time of like being by yourself taught you other than what you've already told me? Was there an instance where you're like, oh wow, I'm like an adult and I'm like learning something I never knew?
Yeah, like I said, it comes naturally when you're on your own, when you're living on your own. A lot of things I have had to adapt to, a lot of things I have had to kind of understand better, and a lot of things just in general I have, being stubborn, refused to accept. But yeah, it's always a mix of just kind of understanding what works for you, but also at the same time being able to be flexible with the things you're doing and being able to adapt to situations as they come.
One thing is that when you're completely on your own, the sort of help that you had, as you said, it kind of disappears, because you only have yourself. So how have you been like coping with that? I know it's been like a year for you probably being on your own, I believe. But on those days where you just need someone to talk to, or you like need to stay level-headed and clear your mind, how do you do that? How do you like keep yourself occupied?
Yeah, it's a challenge sometimes. I'll be honest, a lot of students here face loneliness, which is a big issue, but thankfully, I have a great friend group. I have a great support system in terms of events I can go to, people I can speak to, and I'm always connected to my family every day. So video calls, video chats, stuff like that. So it's a challenge sometimes, and it's always the fact that you can't really share a lot of the times how you're really feeling or that those bouts of loneliness. But yeah, it's all about understanding yourself in a way. I feel it's all about being able to kind of work towards something that you know will help you down the line, where you can share your experiences with someone else who may be going through the same thing and help them in a way.
Before we move on to the exciting stuff, I wanted to ask you, first of all, how was school life for you?
School is fun. I rarely thought growing up that was a sentence I'd be using, but it's
Hmm.
fun. It's a lot of, like I said, new stuff. You get to learn a lot more about, in my case, marketing and economics, and just being able to kind of meet new people, meet new professors who've probably been around all over the world who specialize in their fields, learning from them and being able to, just have like a very inclusive environment of everyone comes from all over the world and we're going to learn from all of them rather than everyone's just going to be in their own little bubble.
Was there like a cultural shock that you experienced when you first moved to America where you're just like, what the heck? Like, what? I don't. Was it like a comical situation or something that like genuinely shocked you about people or just anything over there where you're just like, what? Just, I don't get it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I still go through a lot of that. I think my first experience was when I got at the airport, my first time in the US. I didn't know you could take an Uber and Lyft, which would have been the better option. I walked out directly to the taxi as you would back home, and that came up to like I think $70 from the airport to where I was staying. And when I gave him the $70, the guy turned around and he was like, oh, what's up? And then I realized, oh, he wants a tip on top of that. And me being a student, it's not something you can really just pull out of thin air with a $70 bill for a taxi ride. So that was a culture shock. Yeah, mainly the tipping culture altogether. Some places it's more chill than others, and other places it's more solid. So
More
we've had
intense in a way.
more intense in a way. We've had a delivery driver refuse to just give our food because there was no tip. But yeah, that's a major culture shock. Still kind of you go through with it. But another thing has just been like understanding like schedules. Like everyone is very strong on the 9 to 5 aspect here. So they start working at 9, they end at 5, and that's pretty much a solid with a lot of people I've met. That there's no real leeway a lot of the times, but it's something I've come to respect because it's pretty strong on their beliefs of okay, this is the end of my 8 hour working period, and now I'm going to go home and live my life. I'm like, okay, that's fair. But yeah, a lot. Then it just depends on where you go, state to state, city to city. It's very different. But yeah, it's a pretty fun experience.
When you're on your own, how do you keep yourself like entertained? Like what shows do you watch? And while we're on the topic of shows, what shows did you like grow up watching?
I'll start with what I grew up watching. I started watching One Tree Hill. I think that was one of my first English TV shows that I watched. Grey's Anatomy, Big Bang Theory, Two and a Half Men. What else? I'm missing something.
Criminal Minds?
Criminal Minds, and a few more I'm missing, but yeah, those were the main ones I started watching growing up, and yeah, I have a really funny relation with all those shows because I tend to think about them a lot, or I tend to go back to them once in a while. Grey's Anatomy, especially, I still watch it, still love it, and it almost sent me to med school, so that was a fun experience to have.
What was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about how you almost ended up in med school because of Grey's Anatomy, because that's the level of impact it had on your life growing up. And I wanted to ask you one question. How are you not sick of it yet? How do you have the willpower after 20 seasons to keep going with like the same storyline? And how do you not want to just like jump out the window?
Well, It's it's a funny story. Like I stumbled across Grey's Anatomy while flipping channels, and it was like, okay, it looks interesting. I started watching it. I watched it one day, watched it the second, watched it the third, and then from the fourth, I had a friend who would come up every day, just like 5 or 10 minutes before the show started, and watch it with me. So we started watching it, and I was like, okay, this is pretty interesting. And when I started to dive deeper into it, it was like, okay, I feel like this is something I want to do because A, it's helping save lives, and B, if it looks like a pretty cool job to have. So I was hell bent on being a neurosurgeon. I had like all this stuff planned out, like this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to specialize in, and this is how I'm going to do it. But, as you can see, that plan turned out really well, and I am now studying business. But yeah, Grey's Anatomy is like something I feel like because it's one of my first shows, it's not something I'd get sick of. Also because it's very well done. Like Shonda Rhimes is
Do you watch any of her other shows, or are you like aware, or are you just like stuck to like that one show?
Well, I'm not stuck to one show. Uh, like you said, they have 20 seasons, so you're entertained for a bit, but then you have to kind of venture out. I also have the list of shows that I mentioned earlier. Um, I've been watching, what have I been watching recently? I've been watching a lot of The Boys. It's a pretty fun show. I People may have their opinions about it, but I think it's a very, very well done show. Um, what else have I been watching? I've gone back to watching Doctor House. Is my first time watching that. So just kind of understanding the difference between like all medical dramas and stuff like that. It's been very fun. I've been watching The Rookie. What else? There are so many shows I watch.
Suits? Do you watch Suits?
I have watched Suits twice. I think twice. Yeah, yeah, I think about twice. And if you need someone who's not a lawyer to help explain how housing court works or how you can file for a subpoena, I'm not bragging, but I can help you. That's all I'm saying.
I will leave a link over here, so if any of you want a not lawyer, my kind of person to help you out, here, I'll leave it somewhere here. I'll leave his Insta. You guys can DM it. He's like the Mike of real life. Anyways, so that was really exciting to talk about, and I'll come back to like more TV shows and stuff like that. But that adds on to my next question. You have had so many influences in your life when it comes to sports. And you might not be like a big sports fan as I think you are, but that's like the best way to sort of like label the whole thing. You've had so many pieces of like media influence your life. Like you said, Grey's Anatomy wanted you to be a made you want to become a doctor. And then, you've had different sports also like impact your life in a way where you just sort of went through phases as you grew older. So can you give me like an entire like rundown of the different kinds of sports and games and like media that like influenced your life, and at one point where you're like, okay, you know what, I might want to do this in life because I just think that I would be really good at it.
Oh boy, it's been a list. I think the main one, first and lifelong number one, will be pro wrestling. I grew up watching it, grew up loving it. At I told my parents that, oh, my first career, my first actual career option was I'm going to be a wrestler, and you can't stop me. Uh, but yeah, it's wrestling has been number one always. I grew up uh, learning about football a lot later in my years, so around like when I was in like I think about like middle school is when I learned a lot more about football. I used to play as a goalie and a defender. A goalie because I used to be a very big guy, and I was pretty good at it. I'm gonna say that I was really good as goalie, by the way. I was first pick for every team, so I'm just saying.
Mhm.
Um, Cricket has been something I've gotten into over the years. Not something I was very much into growing up. I never really saw the hype. I used to play, but never really. And then I started to, try out a lot of it, and it turned out to be very fun. What else? UFC has been a big one. Just being able to like combat sports and stuff like that. As a discipline that goes into it, being able to understand each of the fighters and just pure entertainment. Oh, what else? What else? More recently, running. Running has been a very fun. It's been an opportunity to kind of like wind down, but also like be in shape and learn a lot about myself in terms of how far I can push myself and the different things I can try out.
That's amazing. Were you ever into Formula One?
I still kind of sort of dabble in it, but yeah, it's something I grew up playing a lot of. I had the F1 computer game, and we had like the whole steering wheel set, the accelerator, the gear shift. We had everything. I used to play on it every single day without fail. So I was very much into it.
So how far like caught up are you? I assume you're not like very much aware of this season, but how far are you caught up into the sport?
Far enough to know that Mercedes is going to be cutting its losses for the next few years with Hamilton gone to Ferrari. Max Verstappen, I don't know why everyone puts so much shade on. There's Alonso. What's the other guy? Yeah, that's pretty much where I am. As you can see, I'm very caught up. But yeah, I'll watch a race once in a while. I'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's still something that's interesting to me. But I feel like, yeah, it's one of those things where you have to reignite that passion for it again.
Do you think if you watched Suits any earlier in life, like when you were at like an impressionable age, let's say like high school, because I think it kind of came out when you were in high school, do you think you would want to be like Mike Ross and just like be a lawyer, but like in the ethical way, not like the unethical way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I honestly don't know because it would have been a understanding of am I really into law? Am I really into litigation? Or am I really into, just doing what it is that Pearson Specter Lit did or other 50,000 names that company has had. But yeah, I think it would have been a question of just kind of understanding if it's something I would really catch on to.
So let's talk about wrestling. Like let's get into it. Out of all the sports in life, what is it about wrestling that you're just like, I love this more than my life itself? Because I know how much you love wrestling. I don't know what made you want to dabble in it, where you're just like, I don't know. I just want this in my life. That what is it about wrestling that made you fall in love with it just completely?
It's a variation of factors. It's just like A, growing up watching it, just kind of being drawn into how fun it used to be back in the day of
Who was
like
your inspiration when you used to watch it? Like you're a WWE fan, WWF, all of the W's of whatever W's there have been so far. Who was someone that like you grew up watching that also used to be like, oh, that person inspires me a lot, and I'm just like so fascinated by that person.
it wasn't ever just one person. It was a variety of people. Like the bigger names like Undertaker, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Kane, The Rock, Stone Cold, and like a lot of other people. And I think they were very influential on me like growing up because there were a lot of their mannerisms that I adapted to. Or rather, I shouldn't say adapted. Picked up is the better term to use here. While growing up, and it was a lot of just like kind of understanding how disciplined they are, how much fun they have with the work they do, how far they go, the friendships they build, the stories, the matches, and everything else that they do to entertain the fans. That's always been like the what's the best the icing on the cake for me. That's kept me there.
Are you a big John Cena fan? Would you classify yourself as someone who's like hardcore John Cena fan?
Yes, John Cena too. John Cena, Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan, all these people were a lot later influences in my life when they did start to come up. So yeah, I'm a huge John Cena fan as well.
Have you ever like met any of them or had a conversation with them or just like seen them live?
I have. I've had the opportunity to meet a few wrestlers and speak to them over the phone, which has been absolutely great. So I've gotten to meet, I may forget a few names. I've gotten to meet Mojo Rawley, Sting, Elias. I've gotten to speak to Daniel Bryan on the phone. Who else have I met? Yeah, I think those are the top four that come to mind. But other than that, like it's been great just getting to speak to them or getting to see them because they always have like great advice going into it. Like no matter how far they are into the business or how big they are, they always have something nice to say. And the greatest thing I have learned about wrestling that no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, whatever, everyone will come up to you, shake your hand, and say hello, how are you, and introduce themselves.
That's amazing. So, have you ever, like you said, have you ever been like the risk taker where you're just like, you know what, I'm gonna go all in, and I'm actually gonna like fight these people. I'm just gonna wrestle. but I'm gonna fight them, like do the proper way. So have you ever like tried your hand in like actual wrestling where you're just like punching people in the face? Not literally, obviously, but you're just like, oh, I might be good at this. Or did you sort of lead to into a much more like different direction where you're like, maybe the fighting might not be for me, but I'm still like a part of this, the whole action.
Yeah, I have. I was fortunate enough to find a great wrestling group back home in 2016, and I stuck with them ever since. Coming up to what, like 8 years now, and I've met some of the greatest people I know as friends through that group, and I've just got to learn a lot from them. Just growing up, and just from when I was in high school to now. Like for example, my training sessions, my coach was he was intense, but at the same time, he was very caring about like explaining to us why he is intense and what he wants out of all of us in training sessions. But yeah, I've dabbled in it. I will continue to do so until the day I die. Um, I'm pretty sure at one point, I was the only active referee in the region back home. So that was a pretty fun little title to have for a bit. I was also told I'm most likely 99% the only referee who goes out with glasses, and that's what kind of became like a crowd chant slash favorite was like, oh, they want to do something with the glasses. People want to see the glasses taken off. People want to see the glasses be broken. Then it cascaded into, oh, like hit the ref, hit the ref, hit the ref. We hate him. Hit the ref. So that was always great. I still get chills thinking about like all those chants and everything that people used to put up and the experiences and everything. Yeah. So I have had some of the greatest experiences in the ring.
I've seen a lot of like the live streams of the fights in which you like refed at, and would you say you've had like over the years you've built a solid fan base for yourself intentionally or unintentionally? Where like were you at any point you're like, I think these people might like me a little too much?
Um, well, in wrestling, you are because of the fans, right? So
Yeah.
you're there because the fans want you there, or they find you to be entertaining in a way. So for me, I feel like I was able to deliver a part of that aspect where I was entertaining with just being a referee, where I was just entertaining with just counting to three, making sure a match was going well, but also at the same time feeding into that love slash hate relationship the crowd had with me. So yeah, I've been able to do a lot of that, and I think it's really those experiences that have taught me that no matter how small of a role you may play, people notice and people will let you know. So yeah, that's what I've come to appreciate. And in terms of the fans, they're great. They've always been great. Given the fact that I have been out for an extended period of time, I don't know what the reception will be if I do go back or when I do go back. But yeah, it's always great.
So I'm gonna ask you a question like I have been for like the past half an hour, but you can be like extremely honest with me for this one, and like I won't tell anyone. Have you like ever been punched in the face?
Other than like the million people who are gonna watch this, you're gonna tell me.
Exactly, yes. It's like a secret between us. But my question is, have you like ever been like punched in the face and you're just like, I come back home and I have to hide this from my parents or I will be punched again in a not so very good way.
I haven't been punched in the face. I have taken a steel chair to the face. It's been a fun experience because right after that I ended up going out to wrestle another match. But this was as a referee that I got hit in the face. And
So,
then
are there any pictures perhaps online circulating of you being hit in the face and like the aftermath of it where you're just like, ah?
there are, if you do want to look at it, it's you can go up onto Instagram. I'm not gonna show it on here because it may be too graphic for some people. But if you're interested in like looking through it, it's Refler Shozy. So it's RWREFLERSHOZY on Instagram.
You guys should definitely go follow him. All crazy kinds of stuff and crazy kinds of people, like super fun. You should definitely go check it out. So, anyways, as I was saying, something exciting about wrestling is the fact that all of these people have such incredible like names. I don't know what the exact word for it is, but you got Kane, you got The Undertaker, you got all all these fancy people I'm kind of blanking out on right now, but I know my wrestling. Anyways, so like, do you have an alter ego, or do you have like a whole separate sort of name for yourself that distinguishes who you are, who Shoumik is, and who your alter ego is? Do you have anything like that?
I do to the wrestling people. I am known as Shozi. That's what sticks. That's what always has stuck. Um, but yeah, that's my alter ego. Going out there, whether it's to ref or be in a match.
That's exciting. So, is anyone over there, are people over there aware that you're Shozi? Did that name stick in Boston as well? Or is it something where people are just like, oh my God, we never knew there was this whole new side to you?
I mean, people know me as both. At this point, it's Shozi has become more of a nickname for people who can't say Shonik. So yeah, people know me as both here.
I want to talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about humor. As you said, you've had your own podcast. Your love for wrestling led you to starting your own podcast, which is incredible, and you should totally, all of you, check it out. But something about that is all of this stuff ends up going online, the internet, the interwebs, which has been so kind over the years to people. And you end up getting a lot of comments. You put yourself out there, might not get on Spotify because thankfully, you just listen to podcasts over there. But if you put yourself out there on like Instagram or YouTube or anything like that, sometimes people can end up saying a lot of mean things and mask it as humor. So what do you think about that? Is I think humor is like watching funny cat videos, or like watching babies fall over and cry for no reason, or like act stupid. What do you think about people just like being extremely rude and mean online and then like masking it with like, oh, it's just me being funny?
I think it's a lot of their insecurities coming out through an online platform because they don't have to say it face to face. If you were to grab the same people and ask or tell them to say it face to face, what they would say in an Instagram comment, for example, a lot of them wouldn't. And I think it's just that aspect. I feel like other people feel like they're being real without really thinking about it. And there are people like that. There are people who are very just to the point. They don't really put up any filters. But yeah, a lot of the times, for at least for people who mask it as humor, I feel like are hiding insecurities in a way, or they feel like it's appropriate to say to a certain extent, which a lot of the times isn't.
So about your podcast, I have listened to like all the episodes, and I realized that you haven't really uploaded much for the past like a couple of years. It's been a while since you last uploaded. So do you have the intention of taking it further? Because from what I've seen, you have a lot of people who enjoy listening to your episodes. So do you have any intention of like taking it further and like building like your own community back in Boston?
Whew, that is a good question. The intention was always to have that going no matter what. But when life gets in the way and stuff like that, it's hard to do that sometimes. That motivation goes away. But more recently, I have found the motivation to bring it back. So yeah, I will be bringing it back hopefully this fall. And yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to connect with the wrestling community here in Boston.
That's amazing. I will leave, as I said, I will leave a link to wherever you get your podcasts. You should definitely go and listen to his podcast. Super good. Super cool. Anyways, as we wrap up our episode, I have an exciting game I have prepared. It's called One Word. So basically, all you have to do is answer my questions by saying one word unless I ask you why. Okay? So
Okay.
we have 9 questions, and first thing that comes to your mind, but you have to answer by just saying one word unless I ask you why. So let's get started. Are you ready? Just like mentally prepare yourself. Deep breaths. Deep breaths, everyone. All right. Huh.
All right, let's go. I'm done.
Great. One, two, three. Okay, let's get started. If you could join any current football team, which one would you join and which position would you find yourself playing?
Bayern Munich right back.
What?
Bayern Munich right back. I would play for Bayern Munich as a right back.
Okay, cool. Anyways, I don't know what that is. Okay. Who are you supporting at this year's Euro Cup 2024? Go ahead.
Who's in it? At this point I haven't even kept track anymore.
Well, you do realize Spain ended up winning head to head.
Okay, Spain. I honestly have not kept track of that. But I mean, kudos to Spain. Spain was one of my favorite teams. But yeah, I've always been the German fan.
Ooh, interesting. All right. Next question. Favorite Formula One team and your favorite driver?
Ooh, Hamilton for Ferrari, but Mercedes.
Okay. How about you remove Hamilton from the equation and you go back to when you were a kid and you think about who you like?
Michael Schumacher, no question. Michael Schumacher.
Amazing. Oh, what was it? What about your favorite Formula One team? I'm not talking like Ferrari, just like anything other than that where you were like, oh, maybe I might like this team.
Nah, I think Ferrari's always been there.
Are you
Ferrari's always.
are you still a Ferrari fan? Like, Sebastian Vettel once said, everyone's a Ferrari fan.
Mhm.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. Okay. Next question. I think you're gonna really like this question. A wrestler you'd really, 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 really like to be friends with.
A wrestler I would really, really, really like to be friends with. Okay. Uh, so-
One word.
John C. John Cena.
Oh, exciting. Do you think you can learn Mandarin for him so you can recreate that iconic meme of his?
I can learn Mandarin. I speak a few words. I can learn more.
Oh, are you good? Are you well versed in different languages? Are you like a multilinguist?
I like to learn. So, I mean, I can speak a few phrases in some, a few sentences in others.
Are you good at Spanish? Because it's quite common for a lot of people to speak Spanish back in the
Sí,
US.
yo hablo poquito.
My God. Okay. Would you ever be confident enough to step into a WWE ring
Yes.
and wrestle?
Yes.
You didn't hear my full question. But would you ever be confident enough to wrestle an actual wrestler from WWE?
Yes.
Really? Who would your opponent be?
Who would my opponent be? That's a good question. Oh, LA Knight.
I don't know who that is. I'm not caught
Hey,
up on WWE. Anyways, what is something you're really good at?
what is something I'm really good at? I feel like I'm good at stand up or making people laugh.
Speaking of which, do you have any experience in doing stand-up comedy? Because from what I hear, you've done a lot of open mic nights back there.
I have, yeah. I do have experience. I'm still building up, still learning more. And yeah, I'm trying to branch out more with my sets.
I'd like free tickets.
Sure.
Yeah. What is something you're bad at?
Math,
Oof. Accounting?
accounting specifically.
Okay. If you ever met, okay, no, like carefully, you have to listen to this carefully. If you ever met Roman Reigns in person, what would you tell him? Because I like Roman Reigns.
If you're a wrestling fan, you know what that means, and I will say no more.
Oh, hey. Okay, and the last one. Let's close it off with a really exciting one. What is your favorite Cartoon Network show?
You, you see, the issue with these questions has been that none of them have been one word apart from a couple. And
Yeah,
you're asking me to uh Cartoon Network. It's hard. Like you can't go back to OG Cartoon Network and just pick one. Uh I Ben 10 maybe? The original one?
Ooh. Have you ever watched the Star Wars one? The Star Wars cartoon?
Yes, Star Wars, the Clone Wars, but I'm
Clone
not
Wars.
sure. Were they on Cartoon Network? I can't remember if they were on Cartoon Network. But if they were, then yeah, that one.
I'm not sure. Anyways, well, you obviously succeeded, but you also failed because I said one word and you went on a completely different tangent of like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, so that was not one word. Anyways, that brings us to the end of our game. So before we end this episode, is there anything you'd like to say, any message you'd like to give out? Look into this camera, your camera, and say whatever you want. It's kind of like at the end of every Hot Ones episode.
Right. Just do it. If you feel like you want to do something, you want to try it out, just do it. I spent years pondering over it, when I should have just been out there doing it. A lot of stuff that I got to learn, but you learn along the way as well. So if there's anything that you enjoy and want to try out, just go for it.
Words of wisdom. Wow. Words of wisdom. Wow. Oh, wow. Anyways, this brings us to the end of our episode. So if you enjoyed it, you obviously have to give it a thumbs up and you have to like and you have to share and you have to subscribe. Like, come on. I think we're way past the asking stage. Exactly. You should have that enthusiasm. And if you want to be in our next episode, you have the chance to do that. Just get in contact with us. Look at the screen. Make your life easy. And I will see all of you in our next episode. I'm always going to be there. Bye bye.